Well, hello, friends. It's Sam here. Um, Over the past couple of months, as the political situation has become increasingly tense and difficult, um, not just in the United States, but also here in my own country, Canada, I've been thinking about how to talk about resisting what appears to be a tide of authoritarianism, outright fascism in some cases, intolerance. In terms of spirituality, and particularly paganism and Wicca, since that's the main focus of what I do here on my channel. So I think I'm going to do a book review video and talk about books that will provide us with insight and perhaps some techniques and some skills and maybe a little courage to resist the this rising tide of intolerance, to make the world a safer, better place for ourselves, the members of our spiritual communities, and our neighbors. I'm going to begin with a classic work in community organizing, Rules for Radicals by Saul Alinsky, subtitle, A Pragmatic Primer for Realistic Radicals. This edition is 1989. It was originally written in 1971. Saul Alinsky was a community organizer in the United States, and it's a step-by-step manual on building community organizations to support civil society in nonviolent and community-based resistance. It's eminently practical. It's well written, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. It really is an essential book for community organizations of every type. In a society increasingly dominated by images of reality, where people are discouraged from actually seeking out and knowing factual accounts, a classic work, The Society of the Spectacle by Guy Debord. It's a fascinating, poetic exploration of what it's like to live in a society where the image of reality comes to dominate over the factual reality. A close reading, thinking about this idea of the spectacle will give you a handle on what's there and what you are being told to believe, or what you're being fed as an image of reality. It's a valuable, although rather heady, counterattack on misinformation, propaganda, and social media gobbledygook. I will recommend it. Another rather heady book, The History of Sexuality, Volume 1 by Michel Foucault. In particular, I strongly recommend reading Part 4, Chapter 2 on method. Foucault is a philosopher and a political philosopher. This book is a classic on institutions of power. When we think of power, typically we think of somebody on top pushing down on the people below them. Foucault talks about power as a relationship, as a framework of relationships within which people can exercise greater or lesser degrees of personal autonomy and agency. The section on method outlines how he sees these networks of power relationships and operating, the structures within which power can be exercised. If we no longer accept those structures, if we work to undermine them by understanding what they are, we can resist so much more effectively. That's a point, by the way, that this other book, a little and very, very valuable book on tyranny, 20 Lessons from the 20th Century by Timothy Snyder. Snyder sets out a series of 20 little lessons that resistance to and the history of the development of authoritarian and fascist movements in the 20th century give us. Things like, do not obey in advance. When the powerful are starting to be repressive, people often say, well, in a little while they're going to be doing this, and so I should obey that already. What that does is gives them space in which to push even further and to restrict our freedoms and attack different groups of people with greater impunity. So don't obey in advance. Defend institutions. Things like your churches, your gay rights organizations, the legal system. These institutions limit the authority of the powerful. Yes, of course, some of them are structured so that the powerful already have an unreasonable amount of influence over them, but they are first steps in establishing the rule of one person rather than the rule of law or of the common people. And he goes through a number of these, 20 of these, and I cannot say how important this book is to have, to give you a sense of, yes, here's what's happening step by step by step, and here's where we are in that process, and here's where we have to push back with other people and with communities and civil society at large. Admittedly, none of these are spiritual specifically, but they are foundational to understanding what's going on, to getting a handle on how we can resist together with other people and to work towards a place where it is safe to be a witch, a pagan, a lesbian, gay, trans person, an ethnic minority inside of our societies, which are rapidly making these things more and more dangerous and difficult. All of us are in this together, and if we don't work together with the members of people outside of our specific community, we will all hang together. So here's a very useful little book. And again, another little book. It's available online as well. You don't need to buy the book. On Bullshit, Harry G. Frankfurt, Princeton University Press, 2005. It is one of my favorite works of philosophy. It is a wonderful little book on the kind of rhetorical stance, the rhetorical position of such as Donald Trump. There's a difference between someone who just lies and someone who is just engaging in bullshit. Lying, A person who lies knows what the truth is, and they are deliberately going against it. If a person knows, for example, that immigrants do not have a much lower crime rate than non-immigrants, and deliberately says that immigrants have a higher crime rate, they are lying. If, on the other hand, a person doesn't care whether it is true or not, and simply is engaging in rhetoric, is making statements that will further their acquisition of power and authority with no interest in whether it is true or not. They might say something that is true. They might say something that is untrue. In either case, their principal interest is in furthering their rhetorical goals and their acquisition of power. Then they are a bullshitter. They are engaging in bullshit. Understanding that, and this is a beautifully written and actually sort of funny little book, gives you a handle on why certain statements are being made by political, religious, or other figures in furtherance of what is fundamentally an attack on reality, an attack on the truth, an attack on science, and an attack fundamentally on the rights and freedoms of every individual. Wonderful book. Now, on to some things that are more specifically spiritual. Thinking Like a Mountain by John Seed, Joanna Macy, Pat Fleming, and Arneas, Toward a Council of All Beings, 1988, published by New Society Press. This is a wonderful, poetic, evocative little book outlining how to do a ritual identifying yourself with the forces of nature, with where different species of animals and plants get together in a council and talk about the impact of humanity on the natural world and how to find some kind of harmony. It contains several absolutely wonderful bits of ritual. The Invocation to the Spirit of Gaia by John Seed is beautiful, and gives us a way of leaping out of anthropocentrism, leaping out of a worldview which sees the natural world as simply other than humanity and something that we can thereby exploit however we wish to, because we are not part of it. We are not integrated into it. We are not fundamentally animals living in the natural world, dependent on it and with responsibilities to it. It's a beautiful and a very powerfully grounding ritual, and I strongly recommend it. Specifically for resistance, Aradia, The Gospel of the Witches by Charles Leland, originally published in 1890, this edition 1990. The Gospel of Aradia comes out of peasant, Italian peasant folk religion of resistance to the oppressive landlords and feudal system in Italy. It contains several brilliant, beautiful statements. It conjures up the goddess Aradia, who explicitly is the goddess of resistance to unjust authority. Several of the parts of this book made it into the original Wiccan Book of Shadows. And I recommend reading it. Own a copy of it. It will give you, again, a deep spiritual root and connection to the role of witches and magic and folk magic users to assist their communities to resist the unjust power of those in authority over them. Here's a recent one, The New Aradia, A Witch's Handbook to Magical Resistance, edited by Laura Tempest Zakroff, published by Revelor Press in 2018, contains charges, calls, ritual. It contains sigils, how to make sigils to resolve various issues, to empower communities, to deal with issues like housing crisis, burnout, and yes, just an excellent handbook, very useful. I quite recommend it. An older book, Witchcraft and the Gay Counterculture by Arthur Evans. I think it's been republished recently. This is the 1978 edition, published by Fag Rag Books. Talks about LGBTQ people in the magical resistance to empire way back in Europe during the time of the witch hunts. The history's a little bit dubious, but it's extremely inspiring, and it gives us, again, it gives our resistance deep and powerful roots extending back hundreds of years. I think it's very important for us to realize that attacks on sexual minorities are an intrinsic part, a vital part on the establishment of the patriarchy, the establishment of capitalism, and the establishment of empire. Controlling people in their most personal lives, in their love and sexual lives, is vitally important to establishing control over all the other aspects of our lives. And I will very highly recommend, again, deepening our roots, understanding that we are part of hundreds of years of resistance to the empire and protection of our communities. And a useful little magical text handbook. I think this will be it for this pile of books. Protection and Reversal Magic, A Witch's Defense Manual by Jason Miller. 2006, published by New Page Books. It's how to protect yourself from curse and magical attack. There's no doubt that the Christian fundamentalists are engaging in magical attack on every other community. They will not call it that. They'll call it prayer circles or spiritual combat or whatever. We're under magical attack. We should protect ourselves. This provides a variety of methods and ideas for personal protection, community protection, and reflecting attacks back to those who sent it to us. So, I hope this little pile of books has been helpful. Frankly, what we need to do is we need to build communities in spiritually founded, deeply rooted communities to resist the powerful attacks against all of us. Now, we need to build community that reaches out to support all of those who are being attacked, whether we happen to identify with those communities personally or not, whether we even agree with them in some ways or not. I don't have to agree with the politics of some working class or rural farmer to want to support them in being able to live their lives so long as they don't harm someone else. And that really is what it comes down to. We all are under attack. And here are, hopefully, some ideas and some tools that will help you to build community to resist that attack. Blessed be everyone.